Great Debaters Contest is brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.
Hello and welcome to the greatest show on television, the Great Debaters Contest. I am your host, Austin Nyambok.
And I am Mariam Bishar.
Should veto power in the UN be abolished? That is the question that we seek to answer today.
And facing this motion are two very strong teams that we've seen do wonders in the past at this show. We have Strathmore School, who say simply, Veni, Vidi, Vici. They're here to see and to conquer. Their opponents are the lovely ladies of Loreto, Limuru, and they simply say they're here to bring on the heat. First proposer, you have 3 minutes.
In 1994, and around that period, 12 million people were killed in Rwanda and the Darfur conflict, 12 million people combined. Let me talk a bit about that number, 12 million. You see, at the time, 12 million was twice the number of the people in Burundi. Right now, it is still more than the number of people in Burundi. 12 million people were killed. To this day, 191,000 people continue to be killed in a civil war going on in Syria right now as we speak. That's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. And do I know what caused the problem? For sure. Veto power is the ability, in this context, of any of the 5 members of the UN Security Council to prevent the adoption of any resolution, no matter the amount of international support it has. And I will be touching on that a bit later, because that's a lot of what's wrong with it. But let's continue defining the terms, because it's a nice thing to do. What do I mean by the UN? Now, the UN is an organization that was founded on the 24th of October, 1945, to replace the League of the Nations and to, hear me out, provide and ensure international cooperation. Right, so what do I mean by abolish? I mean do away with, stop doing it, get it out of our face. Right, now, why do I think that veto power is the cause of the problem that I talked about before? Because I think that veto power is unfair. It is just desperately, desperately unfair. And all that started with how it began. Now, you see, this is the story of the UN, basically. 1945, the world was reeling from the world's worst war, the Second World War, that killed more people than any war had ever killed. Right, so what happened? Some 5 people, beg your pardon, 5 countries, the United States of America, the British, that is the United Kingdom, China, Russia, and France, they decided to form the UN. Well, whatever the case, they decided to give themselves the power to ensure that whatever the UN does not affect them. That makes them above the law. That is unfair. That is desperately unfair. How can we have 5 people who are above the law and then the rest of us are telling us what to do and we must follow them, but they're above the law? Why shouldn't we be above the law? I find that terrible, pathetic. Let's get rid of it. What else? It's undemocratic, like I said before. Look, when one person holds the power to cancel everything that everyone else in the world wants, you're telling me that the UN should support something like that? The UN, who is so in favor of democracy in Africa? Nothing. Let's get rid of it. Thank you.
First proposer, you have 3 minutes.
You said very well that the permanent members of the UN are China, France, Russia, USA, and the United Kingdom. I hope you note they're the world superpowers. Kimani and Loreto High School, Limuru. The Security Council is an organ of the UN that is there to maintain international peace and security. UN is a global society. Now, at one point in your life, you have interacted with a kid. You go and give this child, please travel with me in this, a bar of chocolates. They love chocolates. And then you just walk a few meters and remember, you know what? That chocolate is too big for that child. Let me get a half of it. You come back for it. You ask her sweetly, nicely, please give me half of this so that I serve it will take it tomorrow. The child refuses. You take it from the child by force. What will that child do? The child will cry and fight to get that chocolate back, right? What am I trying to say? 24th October 1945, these nations came together and formed the UN. In the interest of the world peace, they decided to form the Security Council. They fund it, they support it with troops, money, and in a lot of ways, including sending people to go and meditate and negotiate with countries who are causing war and fighting against each other. Now, it is their right to have veto power, because since the UN was formed, it has been able to help promote peace in the world. Fine. They've done some mistakes. They've failed here and there, but it is normal. No one is perfect. If you're perfect, then I don't know where you come from. Abolishing it will only lead to chaos. We do not want to go back to chaos. We do not want another world war. The UN and the Security Council, they prevent small upcoming countries from making, for lack of a better word, stupid resolutions. Now, the veto power is stated under the UN Charter. And tell me, please, how would you take veto away from a veto power? Thank you.
Proposers, you have 3 minutes.
You said that removing a veto power leads to chaos. How? How does this lead to chaos? I mean, you just said that we don't want another world war. Am I not right? Yet, these 5 countries that started the worldwide body to supposedly maintain peace go around warmongering. Example, Vietnam. The Vietnamese War lasted 19 years, 5 months, 4 weeks, 1 day. That is one war. Participants in this war? 4 of these countries. USSR, currently Russia, China, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. And you want to tell me that these very same people will bring world peace? Am I insane? Or am I just not seeing the point? You will want to tell me that these people who proposed a veto power to protect their own geopolitical interests will want to broker world peace? I highly doubt it. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vietnamese War, again, the casualties who lived to tell the tale tell of horror stories. Horror stories that some of us wouldn't even want to live through. Ladies and gentlemen, peace, she said, is the only way to prevent war. But you can't maintain peace, obviously, by creating war. Am I not right? Then if you want to tell me that you don't want another world war by creating war, my God, this is not our world. You're living in a fantasy. Thank you.
Second opposer, you have 3 minutes for your rebuttal.
Angela Nyaga, Loreto High School, Limuru. The veto power is regulated in the United Nations Charter, and for its abolishment will require the amendment by the 5 superpowers. So tell me, how will the 5 superpowers agree to remove their own veto power? Then again, you've said it will lead to chaos. So tell me, what is better, Vietnam at war or the whole nation at war? Is it better for Vietnam only to fight or for all of us to be at war? I'm talking about Russia with 8,500 nuclear weapons. I'm talking about the United States of America with 7,700 nuclear weapons. France with 300 nuclear weapons, and the United Kingdom with 200, and 25 nuclear weapons. And the thing about power is, once we take power from them, they will fight against each other. And the funny thing is that me and you who belong to a country with 0 nuclear power will be caught in the middle of all of it. They will fight with nuclear power, adding up to almost 10,000 in number. But you and me will be in the middle of it with nothing we can do. Being forewarned is being forearmed. So remember this day I stood before you and I forearmed you. I warned you. I warned you about the war that is about to come if you remove the veto powers. So remember this day. The day you will decide to remove the veto powers from the 5 superpowers in the United Nations Security Council, you'll be caught in the middle. So far, so good. The Security Council was formed after the Second World War. And thus far, we've not had a 3rd World War. That is, unless you want to create it. And definitely you can, by doing one simple thing. Remove the veto powers from the people who have it. Then again, you say that life is unfair. Life will never, ever be fair. What is unfair to me is fair to you. And what is fair to you is fair to me. You cannot tell me that tomorrow morning I will wake up, and because I remove the veto powers from the 5 superpowers, Kenya and France will be equal. In no way will that ever be possible. You will remove the veto powers, but I will still wake up tomorrow and France will be at a better economic place than Kenya. France will have better ammunition than Kenya will. France will have a better education system than Kenya has. So let's stop trying to talk about equality. There's so much we can learn from a pencil, that in life, you need to let go. You need to let someone hold your hand. Let's not feel inferior just because only 5 people have the power. There's so much we can do about that. Abolishment is not the answer. Thank you.
Had them say the lights be switching off, kill the rumors, it ain't happening. Turn the lights on like my swag, that's what's happening. In other words, M-Pesa is alive and well. It's the #1 service in Kenya, if just in case you couldn't tell. Holla.
Take part in the M Challenge by sending your short song, rap or poem about Safaricom M-Pesa on WhatsApp, and you could win 1,000 shillings in Safaricom airtime.
Questions for the proposing team?
I'm Mohamed Abdullahi representing Light Academy. My question goes to the second proposer. Vietnam, USSR, relationship, please. Thank you.
I'm Lena Angeshi from Surrey Girls, opposers. And you keep telling us about this war that will come about from the abolishment of the UN. What are the precise causes of these wars? What will make us fight? And does our peace entirely rely on the UN? Nothing else?
Third proposer, you have 3 minutes.
I would like to answer the question posed by Mohammed. You asked what is the relation between USSR and Vietnam. Simple, communism. USSR supported communism in Vietnam. Revenge, they say, is a dish best served cold. When revenge is not an option, then who shall we turn to? What shall we turn to? Justice, the law. But justice seems a dish best served frozen. Allow me, Ron Kipchumba, to turn back the clock. Sri Lanka, 2003, September 2nd. In the village of Elam, controlled by the Tamil Tigers, a little girl by the name Suraya was found half dead, bleeding. She witnessed her family killed, slaughtered, her mother raped by several men from the Sri Lankan government. Now, what does all this have to do in relation to the topic? China. China had vested interest in Vietnam for their resources. Now, Suraya wasn't the only one. Suraya and 350,000 civilians had to pay that same price, death. For what? For their resources. As previously mentioned by Valiant, the veto puts the P5, the powerful five, above the law. Up to now, there has been no justice for Suraya and the 350,000 people who died in the crossfire. The Swahili have a proverb, fahali wawili wakipigana, nyasi huumia. In this case, the grass is the civilians. What justice shall be served for them? Who shall intervene for Suraya? Ladies and gentlemen, the veto should be abolished. Thank you.
Third opposer, you have 3 minutes to respond to the audience.
Jane Pauline Pamba, Loreto High School, Limuru. I'll start by answering the question of whether we rely on the superpowers. Well, actually, we do rely on the superpowers because we get foreign aid from them. If we strip them of their veto power and they don't, because of what we would have done, which would actually be like we would have stopped supporting them, they would feel betrayed. So they would strip their foreign aid and we would be the grass that died when two bulls were fighting. And the causes of the war would be that they have more nuclear power than we do. If you strip them of their veto power, then all the powers will be standing alone. All of them will want to show the other superpower that they're more powerful than them. A nuclear war starts, they involve the whole world. We still remain to be the grass that dies when two bulls are fighting. And if there has to be an amendment for the superpowers to be stripped of the veto power, and they have to be the ones to accept it or refuse it. Of course they'll refuse it. Then we'll have to use force to strip them of the veto power. And we use force, they come together, they have more nuclear power than any other country. They have more nuclear power combined than any other country in the world. We still remain to be the grass that dies when two bulls are fighting. If abolishment is not the answer, then I will give you another solution. We should then push for more seats where African states can be represented. In this way, all African states, all regions of the world will be represented. And if not, then we get a double veto. In which case, I say no, you say yes, that's a no. I say yes, you say no, then that's a no. In which case, they will have to get support from the rest of the countries. So they will not exactly have so much power over us because they will need backing from us if abolishment is not the answer. If they are stripped of their veto power, which has so far led to dictatorship not being there, led to so many wars not being there, all the wars that would have taken place, we would already have a World War III if it wasn't for them. In cases like the Idi Amin Dada regime, during his regime, a range of about 100,000 to 500,000 people died because his regime was characterized by human rights violations and all these other humanitarian crimes. And Britain, they broke diplomatic relations with them. They became so weak, they could not support themselves. And by that way, the other countries connected with the UN, like Tanzania and Kenya, were able to overthrow them, therefore ensuring peace. Veto power should not be stripped from them.
The proposers, you may begin. You have 1 minute.
I have, interestingly enough, acquired a pencil, a broken pencil. Now, this pencil reminds me of the UN. Well, not really because it's blue and white like the UN, but also because it has lost its point. Unfortunately, I feel my opponents have also lost the point. We're not arguing about whether or not the UN should be abolished, because remember, it's the UN's purpose to keep peace. Now, I agree if we were to disband the UN, now that's where conflict and chaos would come in. But we're not talking about disbanding the UN, we're talking about veto power. Now, we can all fall in love with the 5 veto powers and say, you guys are amazing, you have done great things for us, and we love you so much. Or we could choose to use our heads a bit more and look and say, look, these guys have started wars and they have made laws for themselves in a way that they cannot be told by nobody. They can start wars. Look, Algerian, Vietnamese, the Darfur conflict, Sri Lanka, they can start wars and nothing can happen to them. This is nonsensical. Nonsensical? No, it doesn't make sense. Let's get rid of it.
Opposition, you have 1 minute for your final statements.
You know, life without authority leads to a lawless society that is doomed to war. Decisions have to be made. They have to. And the smaller the group given the power to make the decision, the better and the more effective. Let us be grateful to the veto powers. Abolishment is not the solution. Let us fight and demand for regional representation and maybe an increment in the number of seats for non-permanent members and a representation from the African nations. Let us not abolish the veto power. We are not ready to fight them, believe you me. Thank you.
Fred, there's a lot of pauses in the course of your presentation. At some point, somebody wonders, why are you pausing? It's almost bumpy. We want to see that flow in your presentation. And if there is a pause, then it must be a dramatic pause for a given effect. Ron, good. At some point, I almost wrote you off, when you started. But then I came to realize that the way in which you've understood the topic and the manner in which you're delivering your the subject, it was quite apt. And I gave you what you deserved, actually.
Angela, a great speaker. You almost convinced me that we actually do need this veto power. For me, the most important question is, so what without the veto power? I know Angela touches on it a little, but that's not sufficient enough. The question that I had for Strathmore School, what solutions then? Once we abolish this veto power, then what solutions are you recommending? And that for me was the gap that, you did not fulfill. All the best to the two schools.
Strathmore School, the judges saw it fit to give you 75.4%. Please give them a round of applause. Loreto, Limuru, the judges saw it fit to award you with 70%.
From us at the Great Debaters Contest, it's till next time. I am Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Nyambok.